Happy Friday, my wonderful honor students. I wanted to share with you what I am liking for, what I would be expecting for you to complete today. So it's going to be a little bit of a direction change today because we're going to be focusing on science fair, or we also call it your independent research project. So instead of week 3, you're going to click where it says IRP Science Fair. When you click on there, I have posted some slides, which we're going to go over, and then your topic proposal form, which I have set to be due on Sunday. I want to give you some extra time because you might take you a little bit longer than some might take longer than others to actually come up with it. So those are going to be your two things you're going to be doing today. The topic proposal form is going to be a grade. It's your first grade for science fair. I'm grading it in terms of I'm looking for it to be testable. So just keep that word testable in mind when it comes to your topic proposal. So let's jump right into it. So coming up with a testable topic. There you go, that word testable again. So what we originally had you do was to kind of look up some project ideas. And in my case, some of them, like from the feedback I was getting, most of them kind of seemed to be a little broad. Some of them were already in a testable form, but I wanted to clarify the difference between the two. So a broad topic is just going to be kind of a topic that is an overarching topic. It's going to be maybe like, how does this work? Or, I want to fix this. And what you need to do is you need to turn that into something that's actually testable, something that you can physically do, which means it has to be an actual test. Like you actually can create an experiment from it. So I have a couple of examples here. I have one for a science fair and I have one for an engineering. So here's an example of what I mean from going from a broad topic to a testable topic. So the broad topic is how do babies learn to speak? As you can see, that's very vague, right? It doesn't have anything specific in it. How we take that and make it testable is we're making it specific. So we're saying, what type of words do babies learn to speak first? That's actually something very specific, and it can be made into an experiment. We can design an experiment from the testable topic. It would be really impossible to do it from the broad. So your independent variable has to be specific here, right? Your type of words. So here's an example for going from a broad problem to a specific solution for engineering projects. So remember, engineering projects, you're designing something, a prototype. So that's why it's a little bit different than the science fair. So a broad problem is, can you remove something from an existing product and find a new use for the resulting product? So think of a chair and what could be produced by removing various parts of a chair, rearranging it to make it something else. So to make that more specific, when you're having an actual developing a prototype, is you need to be like telling us what specifically you're trying to make from this original chair pieces. So the specific solution is removing the legs of a chair, and it becomes a baby seat that attaches to a table or a stadium seat. Well, that solves a problem, and that is something that you could actually build and design and test. Now, in this case, we wouldn't use real babies, but we could use dolls that have, enough mass that would be what a typical baby would weigh. So something we can do. So we went from vague to something very specific. Okay, so I just posted in here kind of some things that you want to consider. We kind of talked about this when we did your original, research on finding a science project. I want to remind you of the constraints. And the word constraints means limitations that you need to consider when selecting a testable research topic. You also need to keep in mind of the materials. You are not expected to go buy anything to complete a project. You just need to make sure whatever materials that you will need, you can find around your house, or if you need to go get those certain materials, your parents have approval of doing that, making sure your parents are okay with you buying that. Because I'm not going to ask them to buy you anything unless they're willing to do that. So here are some other considerations. It must be a topic that can actually be tested. Ideally, it should be able to be tested with multiple trials. In an engineering goal, it's a prototype and then adjusting the prototype after each try, each experiment with it. Make sure there's enough time for it. That's why you have to be very hesitant about plants, right? You can still do plants, but you might actually have to buy the plant first and then change something else with it. It shouldn't just be a demonstration. We don't do that in science fair. You actually have to test something. You have to run an experiment. An engineering project will require you to build and test a prototype, so you'll need a blueprint for that. And I would also suggest the prototype, you record yourself using the prototype, and then we can talk further on how we're going to incorporate that when it's virtual for science fair. Is the topic useful to humanity? That will definitely help you out when you're kind of coming up with your rationale or your reasoning behind the project, not just because you had to do it, right? Does it have real world application? That's always a good thing to consider. And how could your invention fill a need? It must be at the appropriate level of difficulty, so no volcanoes, no elephant toothpaste. We all know how that works. Is it realistically testable? Do you have the tools needed to test your hypothesis? So you have to kind of be wary about space projects because a lot of times we don't have the materials and tools able to do that. Also with certain things like bacteria, I don't want any bacteria this year. It's just not doable right now because of the pandemic and everything. It's not going to be easy to do. So try to stay away from that. Make sure it's something you can realistically do. Will your parent and teacher approve the complexity and the safety of the project? I'm going to be very hesitant about anything that requires fire, super sharp objects, anything like, mold, bacteria. Those are going to be things using human participants. Like if you're doing a psychology project or a project where you're testing on other humans, I'm going to be very weary about that because I'm going to have to talk to you personally about kind of the red tape or like the paperwork we're going to have to do to make sure that that's ethical and safe. So basically just keep in mind of those things when you're developing a project, because if you're still wanting to do a certain one, like with a psychology experiment, that's fine, but it's gonna look a little different than it would be if you're just doing something else. Just keep that in mind. And then also try to find something that's important to you. That's something that you're going to be willing to spend several months working on. So again, here are some examples of projects that do not meet the criteria. So what color of light affects the plant's growth more dramatically? First off, the time constraints are all off on that. Also, color, it's been done before. So we're going to move on to the next one. Can I genetically clone my dead cat? No, there's no way that that's possible, especially in middle school and even in high school, senior high. That's no. What kind of bullet creates the largest hole? Been done before. Also, you have to be very careful with firearms. So, especially since you have to social distance, that probably will not be an ideal project. What would be the effect on the Earth if the moon disappeared? Yeah, again, we can't test that. It's not probable. There's no way. So, all right. So your job today is you're going to need to make your broad topic into a testable topic. So remember, it needs to be something that's specific and something that you can actually design an experiment from. Make sure also to consider the constraints or the limitations. Make sure it also can fit in that time frame and with the other factors I mentioned. When you have completed a testable topic or when you have found one, you need to fill out the Google form that is titled Topic Proposal. And this is going to be your first step. And again, as I said before earlier, it's going to be a grade. Just a grade if you complete it and it's testable. So this is the form. You'll put your first name, last name. Please make sure you put your first and last name because it helps. Your ID number. And then here's where you're going to write what your testable project or your testable project is. Make sure it's in a question form and it's specific. And then again, just wanting to ask again, I had about 30 people, was it like 2 weeks ago, complete that they wanted to compete. Just want to make sure if you have changed your mind, it's fine, but if you would just let me know here if you are still interested in competing. I still haven't gotten an official word. However, they are developing ways to do a board electronically. So it is looking like they're going to have a district fair, but we're just waiting on an official word. So that's a good thing, right? It's a good sign that it's a possibility, but we're still going to be doing a virtual school fair. So just let me know if you're still interested in competing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you spend the rest of class period working on this, and just let me know, reach out through email if you have any questions. Y'all have a great day.